Hello, this is my outfit for today. So today we are going to be continuing our conversation on the Bible, and we are going to specifically be talking about Genesis and continuing our journey through the creation story, as well as Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and getting kicked out the Garden of Eden. So yesterday was really fun. I really enjoyed filming this discussion and my thoughts for the very first time. And I got a bit distracted. I got a bit held up on literally the first 2 pages because I felt, and I'm sure that many other people have felt, that there's this other presence, this other goddess-like divine feminine, akin to or at an equal standing of God like energy, right in the very beginning of Genesis, in the book of Moses, the first book of Moses. And so I wanted to unpack that because I felt that it was the great goddess, or whoever you would deem the divine feminine energy, the source of divine feminine energy, the same source that is half of or plays a huge role in the overall source of spirit. Whatever you believe in, there was a great power there that I sensed and I wanted to talk about. And it led me to kind of thinking that maybe it would be fun to kind of try and discover the great goddess or the divine feminine energy in these sacred texts, and try and kind of pinpoint all the points or all of the moments where we see her come to life, or we see her, I use her, but I don't mean gender wise, we see that energy existing so powerfully and without debate, in my opinion, in the text, but is unnamed, goes unnamed, or is erased, or is given another energy's name, or just seen as another aspect of God. So yeah, that was something that was interesting to me. And I want to say that I'm not saying this in with the understanding that God does not have the balance of divine feminine and divine masculine, or if we're trying to move away from like those gendered terms, just saying that God does not hold all of that energy within them, because we know that God does not have pronouns, regardless of what any book says. Spirit, in my personal opinion, does not have pronouns. It does not subscribe to gender. And so it's very possible that all of that energy that I'm sensing is just all wrapped up into God. But because God is given such a masculine presence and is characterized within the male dominant energy, just from the human perspective, I can't help but wonder where that powerful divine feminine energy comes from, or why it doesn't show so clearly in God, at least just within this first page. This is all just me going based off the first page, and then also some outside context. So if I ever feel like I'm not, or if it ever feels like I'm not, giving enough justice to that, then my apologies, and I'm going to try and correct myself on this journey and make sure I'm bringing in every aspect. But I am really excited to get into our discussion today, because I want to talk about the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, and specifically like this idea of like seed and fertility, and it's pretty clear connection to masculinity, like the connection between fertility and masculinity that seems to be established in the very beginning of the Bible, or in the very beginning of Genesis and in the creation story, but then kind of shifts in the fall of man portion of Genesis, where Eve comes to life. So yes, I also want to talk about the other humans that were created that we just don't get, like they're not named, and like they're just kind of like thrown over there, and then it's just like Adam and Eve are the first people, but like, were they? So anyways, so I guess I'll just start by talking about how I felt moving beyond the very beginning and kind of getting into the creation of the animals, the creatures, all of the wildlife on Earth. So there's, first, I would note a pretty clear distinction between, animals, wildlife, creatures, everything else, and then humans. Human beings are not kind of grouped in with animals and just creatures, life on Earth, in the same way that every other species is. Humans are given a very special kind of their own story, and they are made prominent and the dominant, the ruling kind of class on Earth. So we already see this hierarchy established, and I would say that is where it's very clear that the human perspective is coming into this understanding of God and creation, and the value of life on Earth, because while all of these creatures are made in God's image, and all of these life forms are actually created before human beings are even created, and are all given their own special purpose, and are all made very intentionally, it seems like, just from the text, God is consistently checking and being like, it was good, constantly, thinking of all these different things that need to exist, and creating this community of life. God didn't just be like, okay, here's one type of fish, one type of land animal, one type of bird, and then let's get to the humans. Like, there's all of these different species and creatures that were created, a community of earth beings, of life, that was forged from their imagination. And then also God makes it clear and puts the specific intention of procreation into all of these different creatures. Let me try and find where that is clear. Yeah, and God created the great whales, God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and in the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. So, there's a few things. So, God wanted creatures, all different types, to multiply and be fruitful, the same way that they tell human beings, Adam and Eve, to be fruitful and to multiply and to continue to expand. So they are given the same intention and same purpose, it seems like, just at that base level. Expand on Earth, continue life, kind of do the work of God and continue to create. And God does not tell them how to do that, other than, procreation. God does not tell them how to live on Earth, or where to journey, what their purpose should be, what they should be doing. Just kind of gives them free will, I would say. Similar, in my opinion, to human beings. And one thing that I was curious about is the after their kind and the after his kind. I was not sure whether they were saying, well, the writers were saying that after their kind was talking to the animals, like the creatures, or talking about God, like after his kind, as in, like, God's kind, just like we are made in God's image. That's what they say? I was wondering if that was the same conversation they were having around the animals or not. Either way, we see masculine pronouns being used and no presence of the feminine pronoun. We don't really actually see anything around femininity or anything around that connected to procreation and fertility until Eve, which I thought was interesting, and like the birth of woman. So that made me want to ask, why in the very beginning of the Bible is fertility so heavily connected to masculinity and to the seed? Because the word even seed is often connected to men, and the way that to male people and the way that they contribute to creating life through their, so That's what I get when I hear seed. And so whenever God was talking about expanding and multiplying, they were saying, which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. Everything about seed signified fertility, signified expansion, conception, and birth, and, multiplying families. And so there's such a heavy connection between like the birthing process, the laboring, the creation process, and masculinity. And yet when it comes to human beings, we see that context not being applied. Except Adam does almost give birth to Eve, because it is from his rib that she is created. But then Eve is given the task of birthing, and women in the Bible, and we're talking about cis women in this context, and people with wombs and things like that, and also trans men, non-binary folks, but none of that is included in the context of the Bible, but you know what I mean. People with wombs are given the task of giving birth. And yet there is such a heavy connection between fertility and the seed in the very beginning, in the creation story. So that was something that was just kind of like pulling at my mind, and I was trying to understand why things had to change, why things switched. And this is also where I see a heavy connection between, human manipulation and the patriarchy and sexist manipulation of this context of creation. Because why would it be that there is no presence of femininity, feminine energy, anything connected to womanhood or wombs, childbearing in the way that we experience it as human beings, and even many other animals also experience it. Not all animals that are given the term female give birth, but many of them do. And so it was interesting that there was only an emphasis on this word seed. You could see seed as the same as egg, but when I was understanding it, I was more so understanding it in the context of the masculine seed, your sperm, right? And so there's not really much of a care or an emphasis or, any type of attention really given to what is holding that seed, what is feeding that seed, what is growing that seed into the multiplication of the life on earth, right? And it goes right back to what I was talking about in the very beginning, where I said that God and the thoughts that God was having that was creating earth and creating the universe, that had to be held within something that was not just there's no way for that to exist on its own. Like a thought needs a space to even come into, to be created. There has to be something pushing the thought out and forward and moving it through something. It has to be moving through something. There's something else there, like a womb-like energy, and yet it's not named. And so we see that consistently within the next few discussions around being fruitful and multiplying. We hear about this seed, we hear about the thoughts, the ideas, and all of that, and then being pushed into action. But we're not hearing, and we're not naming, and we're not seeing the womb that is growing that is carrying that through, whatever is helping push that through, And so it's like this erasure of the feminine and the womb energy. I guess I'm just trying to say that there is something else holding that, but that something is being erased in the creation story. And so it's frustrating because I'm just like, I'm not really understanding why that presence wasn't allowed to be named. And it's a big deal because we understand then how men in our society, especially cis men, cisgendered men, are able to gain so much power because not only are you given dominion over all, because everything is man, everything is his kind. So not only are you given dominion to rule over all, but you are also seen as the creators and the contributors and, the reason for the existence of life. It's your seed. It is your responsibility. And so it kind of completely erases any other contributor and anything else that was holding that weight, and makes that seem insignificant. And so when we get into Adam and Adam's creation, and then God trying to find Adam and a helper, we see Adam get to go through the process of naming all of these other creatures. Adam gets to name the chickens and the birds and blah, blah, blah. Adam gets to rule over all. Adam gets to be almost like the human incarnation of like God, it feels like. And yet none of these helpers, and everybody's a helper to Adam, to man. Nobody has their own purpose. It is all to serve Adam. But then, as God is like trying to help Adam find his little helper, he's not able to. And so he has to put Adam to sleep and take Eve out of Adam's rib. And that is when Adam was able to find a helper good enough for him. And that whole process was very confusing to me, because it was giving Adam is not able to work alongside or have a functional, healthy relationship with another human being unless it comes from him, and that is the original standard, because it gives him power and it assures him as the guardian over and the owner and the property, the property owner of Eve and of the feminine and of the energy that holds and creates and grows life and births life, So it establishes Adam as the original laborer, the original birther, the original womb almost. And then Eve is just like this offspring that continues to hold the weight, take on the trauma, take on the pain, take on the task of giving birth and extending life. But she is never allowed to exist without the context of Adam. Woman is never allowed to exist without the context of man. And that was really frustrating to me. And the only way that they were able to justify telling a story in that way was because there is no presence of that feminine energy in the very beginning. There is no goddess to match God, the God that is seen as the masculine. It's undeniable that God is given heavy masculine characteristics and is heavily aligned with the he, him, with the man. And whether that's the truth or not, I don't think it's true that God is, all masculine energy and blah, 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 blah. I don't. But I'm going based off the context of the Bible. The context of the Bible is providing. It's giving masculine energy. And so the lack of naming the feminine and giving a name to that, giving a purpose to that, and also implementing that feminine energy into the rest of creation makes it so difficult to place women in a place of power and empowerment and liberation from just being the rib of a man. Because even the name of women is because they are of man. You know what I mean? It's just like a complete erasure of, the ability for feminine energy to stand on its own. It's almost as if saying that, feminine energy needs the balance of masculine energy, but masculine energy does not need anything. Masculine energy exists on its own and in its own right, and actually created feminine energy. So it's like masculine energy is the parent of it all, the first seed, the atom, like an atom, but also Adam. And that's frustrating to me because I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense. And what was even more interesting to me, or kind of at the same level, was that other human beings were created on, when was that? Other human beings were created before Adam and Eve were created, right? So God created man. Yes. Okay, hold on. So I will say, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all of earth, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, and which is upon the face of all of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And on. God gives human beings everything. So first of all, humans, man and woman, or male and female, I guess, were created before Adam and Eve existed. They go nameless. They're told to be fruitful and multiply. And they're told that they have dominion and control over everything. They're made in God's image, in God's likeness. They are basically the incarnations of God on earth. That's what it sounds like. This is where you see the human manipulation, because it's giving colonialism. You have rights to everything, you control everything. It's very, white man energy, where you just get to have everything. And honestly, it's just very masculine, toxic masculine energy, where, everything belongs to you. You have right to make everything into your own need, and you have no responsibility over assuring, the liberation of all creatures' lives on earth, and ensuring that they are all treated, with love and respect and kindness and autonomy, but rather they are all your things, and you get to use them and rule them and decide over them. And that makes no sense, because when you think about all of the creatures and all of the life that exists on earth, it doesn't make any sense that human beings would be the deciders of all of that, the rulers over all of that. But they're just given that power. Yeah. But at the same time, as I'm reading it again, it's not, so God created man in his own image. Man meaning human, I would assume, because it's God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. So I'm reading this as God created humans in his own image, and in the image of God he created himself, for himself, male and female. He created the two of them. So that's what I'm understanding. But I'm like, my brain just gets so like, what? Because first of all, why isn't it human? Why is it man? It's just like this constant establishing that like, it's man, it's man, it's man. It's almost like they're desperate to like assure that men are at the top, that men were created first, that men are the importance, the powerful, because it's clear that that's meant to be symbolizing human. Yeah, but they just use man, and all this he, him, his own, and then just one female. And even female is, male is within that. Oh my goodness. But I ask, where does this female energy come from? Why was that necessary? Because there's life on Earth that is asexual, or, creatures that do not need a counterpart, a physical counterpart. They do not need to do anything together that's, in order to create life and continue to expand. So where does that female energy come from? Why is it important? Why was it relevant for human beings, especially when human beings are made in the image of God and are, in this story, made out to be the incarnations, the human incarnations of God, of like a godlike power. That's basically how they're describing it. So why is this feminine energy needed? Why is the female needed? Why couldn't the man do it all on their own? And if it was known by God, because God created man in his image, if it was known by God that female was needed, then it's known by God that it is not just God alone, or it is not just God as man alone. There is this other energy, but it's not going to be named. And I'm sure that you could try and argue that, the female and the male is all God. That is all just God energy. But I've got to say that it's just not making sense. It's just not making sense. Because if that was all just God energy, then we wouldn't see this avoidance of the she, her, the female, the feminine, the woman, this womb-like energy, the encaser, what holds the seed, what grows the seed, what works with the seed, this co-collaborator. There wouldn't be the avoidance of that energy because it would all be God. So there's no shame in it, and there's nothing that could take from that power. But there is an active avoidance of the feminine. There is an active erasure of the feminine, which proves to me that there is something very important that's missing that could totally flip the way that we understand, what it means to be human, what it means to be a creature on Earth, what it means to be alive, what it means to be connected to the spirit world, to the universe, and understanding that it is not just God alone, that we have a very simplified, a very limited and skewed perspective of the creator, one which does not even fully represent all that the creator is, and that maybe it's not just a single creator, but rather, like I was saying in the last video, a community, or at the very lowest, a co-creation, a collaboration of, at the very least, two energies, not just one. But I even think it goes deeper than just two, but two is what we can understand because we are all so stuck in the binary of male and female. So, we have to see it as God and goddess, but there is something much more expansive and much bigger that goes beyond just that. It is a combination, a collaboration, but that doesn't work with the human agenda of, a single power source and dominion over all and hierarchy. We can't have a hierarchy if we are admitting that, in the spirit world and in the act of creating the universe, it was a collective, a community effort, and not just the effort of one man, one God. So there is just this erasure of all feminine energy until the female, and this one line out of the entire creation story, there's just one female word mentioned, and it's that when talking about the human beings, and then everything else is seed, he, him, his, man, God. So that was frustrating, and that was enlightening, because you can just see the story begin to fall apart right at the beginning. And that's why I think it's very easy to understand that, in my perspective, it's very easy to, say that this was not written by spirit. This was not delivered by spirit, at least not in its true form. There was manipulation. It's clear that there is an agenda as you go through this to prioritize the man. There's an agenda to prioritize human beings over the rest of life on Earth, and to establish us as the center of the universe, as literally the gods, in human form, working to further God's cause. And there's just the erasure of any other value that could exist in other life forms that aren't us and that aren't coming from man, And it's unfortunate. It makes it difficult to want to read on, I'm not gonna lie, because I just get frustrated. Yeah. So then looking at Adam, because I am just gonna jump around now. Looking at Adam is an interesting and kind of insecure character in this book. Adam seems to be very hell-bent on securing his own place as, man of the house, man of the garden. He gets to be the one that names all of the creatures, and he gets to name even Eve, his wife. I would imagine his wife, something like that. His partner, his helper, because that's what she's literally seen as. He gets to name her, and he names her in the context of himself, by naming her woman and he being man. So he doesn't allow her to exist in her own right. And he does not allow her energy to exist without the context of his own energy. And Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man." I'm sorry. Ugh. See, let's read it from the beginning. "And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an help meet for him, a helper for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man." So we also see the first human birth, I guess you could say. And it happens during a deep sleep. God just kind of comes in, makes a little hole in Adam's body, takes out his rib, and creates Eve. So while every other creature on earth is created from the ground, created from the dirt, woman is created from man. So she is actually placed kind of, if we are following this hierarchy state, kind of below like everything else, because everything else was created by God, and solely God alone. God and the land, God and the earth. But even the earth was created by God. So everything is a collaboration between the earth and God, even Adam. But then woman is a collaboration between Adam and God. I think that that's pretty significant, because it puts Adam and it puts man at the same level of God, essentially. It gives them that same status, basically, because it says that, man has the ability to create as God creates. Man has the ability to create as the earth creates, as the ground creates, which was created by God. So it's almost like Adam and God are the co-collaborators, the co-creators. This co-creation that I was noticing in the beginning is given to Adam, and it births woman. So woman is not connected to earth, and woman is not solely connected to God. Woman is connected to Adam and God. She is not able to exist in her own right, and it creates a very, very limited power and autonomy and individualism for woman and feminine energy, because it says that your very beginning begins with man, and that's just not true. That's just not true. So it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. And I think what ticks at me the most is the naming, because we all know how important language is. And now we've had the terms woman and man and female and male and feminine and masculine forever. It feels like forever. It's very hard to create new terms out of that, something to replace that and have it be as, fundamental and meaningful to us. And so it was a huge power move to write this story in this way and to actively erase the feminine in the way that the Bible does. It's a huge, huge power move and a huge loss and a huge, huge cruelty, and I think attack against feminine energy. Something that we really need to do our absolute best to combat in examining the Bible, because it just created, the permission for sexism, patriarchy, violence against women, violence against anything that steered away from masculine energy at like the most toxic level possible. It gave permission to all of that because it said, well, Adam is the creator. Adam is God. God is Adam. Man is God. God is man. He, him, his, all that is at the very top and everything is below. It's strange. So anyways, as we move beyond that, I could go into Adam and Eve and the snake and eating the apple and all of that, but I feel like there's been so much discussion about that anyways, and I was interested in it yesterday when I was reading, but I'm no longer interested in it. I'm more so interested in why women and Eve were given the punishment of a cruel labor, and even labor at all, if it is man that is God, man that's the creator, masculine energy that is the creator. I want to know why. Where does that come from? So Eve eats the apple because the serpent told her to, and whatever. Then Adam eats the apple because Eve told him to, and he throws her under the bus. God comes back. It's like, why'd you eat the apple? They're both like, and God punishes them. So God's punishment for Eve is, and God said unto the woman, what is this that, oh my God, hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm going to read the punishments. So, and God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So, pause. Reading this, it was already established that Eve and women and feminine energy would be the ones to conceive and to create life. Because it wasn't, I will now put the task of conception upon you. It was, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. There was already sorrow, there was already conception. That was already established. When was that established? Based on the context of the creation story in Adam and Eve, when was it established that feminine energy was the one that gave birth and multiplied? We didn't hear anything about that. We didn't get any type of sense that feminine energy was important to creation at all. At all. It wasn't named, it wasn't given any type of power, it wasn't given any type of purpose until this very moment. Human manipulation. It's very obvious. Like, what? It's just a complete erasure up until the point of punishment. Up until the point of punishment. Then we see that it is woman and man who work together to create life and blah, 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 blah. And it's woman who carries the baby and gives birth to the baby and is in pain, is in sorrow. But it's just like, why does it only come up when it's the consequence? It's just initially, it's like innately connecting feminine energy to violence, to sorrow, to struggle, to pain, and to sin. Feminine energy is innately connected to sin and to deception and to, disobeying, to disappointment. Like all of this negativity. Why is there such an effort to make feminine energy, to make the womb, to make women, to make female, to make whatever you connect that energy to? Why is there such an effort to make it bad and evil and to punish it and to erase it and to only mention it in the context of pain and sorrow? There is such an effort to erase the goddess, to erase any type of threat of power to the masculine. And it's kind of out of this world that this book could even possibly try and say that it's about God and about, spirituality and our connection to the universe, when it's so clear that this is like, this is about gender and this is about the power of men. It's really frustrating. It's really, really, really frustrating. And I can't even get into my my annoyances with how, God treats, the punishments of eating the apple. Okay, I got interrupted, but I'm back. And I think you can sense that I'm very frustrated. I just feel very blocked because I just can't understand where this kind of hatred for women and this misogyny, like, why? Where did it stem from? And I can't help but feel like it stems from an insecurity that lies in this perceived lack that the masculine holds because they do not get to birth, life into the world, even though they play an integral role with the seed. I think that there is this genuine, deep-rooted insecurity, and it went so deep that you had to completely erase and defame feminine energy, the goddess energy, the woman, in order to justify, your own existence. It's very strange. It's a deep hatred, and it's interesting that it's the first story in the Holy Bible, that the story that is so heavily rooted in insecurity and hatred and, a power-hungry, greedy, cruel energy is the first story that they choose to include in the Bible. And it's the creation story and the story of, the creation of human beings and earth and the universe. And you're saying that this is the word of God. Like, that sounds like blasphemy to me. That sounds like I would be, like, whoever wrote this, I'm just like, yikes. Yikes, 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 yikes. It's frustrating, and I wish that I had more to say, but right now I'm feeling super, like, I feel triggered because I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding why it had to be this way, and I guess I shouldn't get caught up, but I think I need to take a break, and I'll come back to this discussion tomorrow, and I don't even know if I'll be able to, oh, yikes. I'm like, am I going to be able to finish this book? Because I'm already so upset, but I'll have to, so I'm going to try. We'll get into it later, but for now I need to take a break. So this is the next video, and I'll see you later. Have a good day.